Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today, I've got another teamwork build for you guys, so let's get right into it. So if you've seen at least the first season of DC's Legends of Tomorrow, you know all about the Time Masters. If you don't, they're a council who watches over and manipulates time. However, what if I told you that in Pathfinder 2e, you can do something that the Time Masters have never been shown to do? The Time Masters in this series needed time ships and crews to manipulate time, and have never been shown to be able to manipulate time around them. You can do that with this build thanks to Dark Archive. Thanks to the new Dark Archive book, we now have access to a few new feats, as well as the Time Mystery Oracle subclass. Speed up time for your allies, slow down time for your enemies, even go back in time and use once per day abilities again. That is what this build is capable of. For this build, we're playing an Elf Aasimar. Elf will give us a 30-foot move speed to start, and an access to an Elf feat that we're going to need for this build. However, where this build really shines is those Aasimar feats, which we are going to be taking a ton. Then for our background, we're going to go with Translator. We are definitely going to have a high charisma, so that's going to help us with our social skills. However, what will help us even more with those social skills is multilingual. It'll give us 2 extra languages, which is going to help us talk to more people. Now it's time to take a look at the Time Mystery. For starters, when we take this at first level, our speed immediately increases by 10 feet. So now, as an elf, we have a speed of 40 feet at first level, and our speed increases by 5 feet at 6th, 10th, 14th, and 18th level, which means if we do reach 18th level, we'll have a speed of 60 feet. This means we're faster than a monk at levels 1 and 2, and we're just as fast as a monk at higher levels. We also gain the Time Sense cantrip, which isn't great. For one action, we can learn exactly what time it is. If we are trained in certain lore skills, we can also gain a precise timing of when an event will begin and end. We can also gain a +1 bonus to an attack roll, perception check, skill check, or saving throw that requires extremely precise timing. If we choose to gain this bonus, we can't gain it again for 1 hour. Way too situational of a spell, but it is a cantrip. However, what isn't too situational is our first revelation spell. Temporal Distortion requires a will save and allows us to roll 1d4. If we roll a 1, the foe becomes clumsy. On a 2, the foe becomes enfeebled. On a 3, the foe becomes stupefied. But if we roll a 4, we get to choose which condition applies. On a failed saving throw, the target becomes clumsy, enfeebled, or stupefied 1, depending on the result of the d4. This lasts for 4 rounds. If the target critically fails their saving throw, then the condition value increases to 3, but it only lasts 2 rounds. We also gain a +1 to AC from attacks from reactions or free actions while we're moving. Of course, as an oracle, all of these benefits come with a curse. The Curse of Turbulent Movements. For our minor curse, we become enfeebled 1, and we take a -2 penalty on saves against effects that would give us the fatigued or slowed condition. For our moderate curse, we become enfeebled 2, and the penalty on saves from our minor curse increases to -3. In addition, the status bonus against attacks made by reactions while moving increases to +2. In addition, spells, afflictions, and conditions affecting you have their duration cut in half, to a minimum of 1 round. This does not affect the duration for any other targets of the same effects. And this does not affect any other features that are based on the passage of time, such as how often you can use certain abilities. Also, any of these effects that last until your next daily preparations last for 12 hours or until your next daily preparations, whichever comes first. For our major curse, we become slowed 1, the enfeebled condition from the curse increases to 3, and our penalty to saves increases to -4. We gain a +4 bonus 2 initiative rolls. Whenever we move, we become concealed while we're moving and until the end of our next turn. We can't use this concealment to hide or sneak. Our bonus to AC from reactions or free actions while we're moving increases to +4. Our starting stats for this build should be Strength 12, Dexterity 14, Constitution 10, Intelligence 12, Wisdom 12, and Charisma 18. We need our Strength to be 12 so we can wear the best armor possible. We need our Dex and Wisdom to be decently high for our defense. And we need our Charisma to be as high as possible since we are going to be using our spell DC and spell attack rolls. The spells you want to pick for this build are pretty much up to you. I mean, obviously you're going to want to take time-based spells like Slow, Haste, and the new Loose Times Arrow. And the Divine list is very good at buffing allies and debuffing enemies. We are also going to be picking up the Arcane list thanks to our free archetype, because sometimes just doing damage is the better option, even for a support build like this. But other than this, you can pretty much pick any spells you want and be fine with this build. Also, the spells I just mentioned aren't available on the Divine list, which is another reason why we need the Arcane list. Now let's talk about feats. At first level, we get our Ancestry feats. And we're going with Halo. Not only is this a prerequisite for our next Ancestry feat, but also, not every party is going to be full of characters who have dark vision. And we have dark vision, but our allies might not. We'll allow allies that don't have dark vision to see in the dark. And we can always turn it off if the rogue in our party with dark vision needs to be sneaky. Plus, once the rogue is out of our light radius, this is a great way to distract enemies while the rogue does rogue stuff. Then at level 2, of course, we get 2 more class feats. And we're going to start with Reach Spell. This will allow us to cast that 2-action heal from 60 feet away instead of the normal 30. Because of our low AC and the fact that we have amazing speed, we're probably going to want to be pretty far back from enemies and our allies. So we need to be able to cast spells from further away. Then on the free archetype side, we're going to go with the Sorcerer Dedication. And we want the Genie Bloodline. Our Genie type does not matter here. And the main reason is because we're taking the Sorcerer Dedication for the Genie focus spells as well as the Arcane list. We're not taking it for the granted spells that the Bloodline gives us. We get 2 cantrips from the Arcane list, which is going to help us attack when we have nothing else to really do. At third, we get a general feat, which we're going to go with Canny Acumen for our reflex saves. As an Oracle, we're not going to get expert in reflex saves until all the way at level 13. This will give us expert now, and at level 17 we'll become a master. Because who doesn't appreciate a little extra defense against that fireball coming your way? For our first feat at level 4, I've gone with Basic Bloodline Spell. This will give us the initial focus spell from our Bloodline, which for our Bloodline is going to be Genie's Veil. For a reaction, if one of our allies would be attacked, we can make them concealed until the end of the current creature's turn. Then on the free archetype side, we want to take Basic Sorcerer Spellcasting. This is simply just more powerful arcane spells, which will help us with our damage output. At 5th, we get our Ancestry feat as well as our ability score increases. For our ability score increases, we want to increase our Dex, Constitution, Wisdom, and Charisma. Dexterity, Constitution, and Wisdom for our defenses, and obviously Charisma because we need our spell DC and our spell attack roll to be high. And for our Ancestry feat, we're going to take Healer's Halo. Any creatures that recover hit points from a positive healing effect get an extra 1d6 hit points. But after that, they're immune for 10 minutes. We do have the Divine list, so we do have access to heal spells. But we're not going to have near as many as a cleric of the same level. So we want to do as much healing as we can with the limited heal spells we have. Yes, we are focusing on debuffing and buffing with our time-related spells. But that doesn't mean we can't squeeze a little bit of healing in there. At level 6, we'll pick up Advanced Revelation. This will give us the completely broken time skip focus spell. For one action, we can target one willing creature other than ourselves within 30 feet. That creature is quickened on its next turn and can use the action to step, stride, or strike. And every time we heighten this spell by 1 level, we can increase the number of targets by 1. That means we can eventually target the entire party except us with this spell. So eventually, we're going to want to swap out our Loose Times Arrow spell for something else, since this is just a better version of it. On the free archetype side, we're going to move away from Sorcerer for a little while and take the brand new rare dedication, the Chrono Skimmer dedication. When you roll initiative, you can choose one of 3 effects. Do nothing and roll initiative normally, destabilize your time stream, or stabilize your time stream. If you choose to stabilize your time stream, then you don't roll initiative and instead get 10 plus your initiative modifier. If you choose to destabilize your time stream, roll a DC 11 flat check. On success, your initiative is 19 plus your initiative modifier. On a failure, your initiative is equal to 1 plus your initiative modifier. In addition, if your initiative is tied with an opponent's, you always go first. Some Chrono Skimmer abilities require saving throws. The DC for these saving throws is called your Chrono Skimmer DC and is equal to your spell DC or class DC, whichever is higher. For us, that's going to be our spell DC, definitely. For our general feat at level 7, I've gone with Incredible Initiative. This will help us with our initiative if we use a certain feat we're going to take later on. For our 2 feats at 8th level, we'll start with Bloodline Breath. Now we get 1 more sorcerer spell for every level except our highest 2, which right now we only get this for 1st level. But as we level up, we're going to be getting higher level spells, which means more spell slots for lower level spells. Then from the Chrono Skimmer archetype, we'll take Guide the Timeline. For 1 action once per day, we can choose an ally or a foe. If we choose an ally, then the next time that ally rolls an attack roll or skill check, they get to roll twice and take the better result. If we choose a foe, that foe gets disadvantage on their next attack roll or skill check, unless they succeed on a will save against our Chrono Skimmer DC, which of course for this build is our spell DC. Regardless of your choice, the target is immune to this effect for 24 hours. Then at 9th, we get an Ancestry feat. This is where we'll take the 1 elf feat we need for this build, which is Elf Step. This will help us to avoid those pesky attacks of opportunity when we run into creatures that do have it. We will be taking a feat later on that will allow us to avoid attacks of opportunity. However, that feat can only be used once per 10 minutes, and this feat can be used as much as we want. At level 10, we'll start with Oracular Warning. For a free action, when we're about to roll initiative, we can warn 1 ally. This gives them advantage on their initiative roll. Also, if we happen to be legendary in religion, we can do this for 2 allies. However, using this feat does come with a downside. We must roll twice for initiative and take the lower result. Unfortunately, we cannot use the effects of our Chrono Skimmer dedication to avoid the negative effects of this feat, as doing so would completely cancel out the effects of this feat. Then we've got Steal Time. With this feat, for 2 actions, we target 1 creature within 30 feet. That creature must make a Fortitude saving throw against our Chrono Skimmer DC. They take the effects of the slow spell based on the result of their saving throw. We can use this feat once every hour. We also gain ability score increases at this level. We want to increase our Constitution, Intelligence, Wisdom, and Charisma. Constitution and Wisdom for our defenses, Charisma for our spell DC. We're going to need quite a few skills for this build. That's why we want to up our Intelligence. We are probably the party's face outside of combat because of our high Charisma. However, we're also going to need to be pretty high in Religion so we can use Oracular Warning on more allies. For our first teamwork report, I want to start with our curse. Our minor curse doesn't really matter. We're not avoiding it, it's just we're never going to use our strength, so being enfeebled doesn't matter. And the fatigued and slowed conditions are so rarely inflicted on players that the -2 on saves is hardly ever going to come up. Our moderate curse does increase these penalties. However, our moderate curse helps us a lot more than hinders us. It's when we get into our major curse that things start becoming a problem for us. While our major curse does give us a lot of benefits, the problem is that slowed 1. Unlike taking a minus on saves against being slowed, we're automatically slowed 1. And being slowed is a huge problem for spellcasters. We definitely want to avoid going into our major curse or higher. And if we do go into our major curse, we need to refocus immediately after the battle. Because if we're slowed 1 and we have to move, 90% of our spells are now off the table. Since if we've got to move, then we don't have the actions to cast them. We may have incredible speed, but we still have to use an action to move. There isn't much more to say about the strategy for this build except a couple things. The best strategy for this build is to use our Divine List to buff allies and debuff enemies, as the Divine List is very good for that. Then we want to use our Arcane List so that we can actually attack when we need to. Because sometimes, even from a teamwork standpoint, it is better to do damage instead of just buffing allies or debuffing enemies. Also, we do want slow as one of our signature spells. This way we will eventually be able to target multiple creatures with that spell twice per day. Right now, though, we can only cast it once per day, and we can't heighten it. But thanks to our Steal Time feat, even if we run out of slow spells in our repertoire, we can still cast it once per hour, which means we can cast the most broken debuff spell in the entire game at least twice a day. Very useful against a lot of opponents. Now it's time to move on to the rest of this build. For our general feat, at 11th level, we're going to go with Toughness to increase our hit points. We're not going to have a huge AC because we're limited to light armor. So this will give us a bit more survivability. At 12th, we're going to start with Greater Revelation. This will give us the Manifold Lives Revelation spell. For 2 actions, we can target one creature within 30 feet. That creature takes 66 mental damage with a will saving throw. On success, the target takes half damage and is stupefied 2 for 1 round. On a failure, the target takes the full damage and is stupefied 2 for 1 minute. The target must also attempt another save at the beginning of each of its turns. On a failure, that target is slowed 1 for that turn. On a critical failure, the target is automatically stupefied 4 and slowed 1 for 1 minute. Although spellcasters usually have high will saves, this is still a fantastic spell to use against them. But the slowed condition can be really good against marshals as well. Then on the free archetype side, we'll take Expert Sorcerer Spellcasting for more attack spells. At level 13, we get our Ancestry feats. And we're going with Celestial Wings. Being able to fly, even for just 10 minutes, is a huge asset for this build. Now our major curse isn't as bad, because we can fly out of range of melee combatants. Meaning, as long as there aren't any melee flying enemies on the battlefield, even if we're slowed 1, we can cast our 2-action spells as long as we're in the air. At 14th, we can pick up Forestall Curse. This will allow us to cast 1 revelation spell per day without increasing our curse severity, as long as we use this action before we cast the revelation spell. And on our free archetype side, we'll take Reset the Past. For a free action once per day, we can choose one of our Chrono skimmer feats that has a frequency of once per day or more frequent. We can use that ability again as if we had never used it. So using this allows us to use our Guide the Timeline or Steal Time more often. At 15th, we get our ability score increases and a general feat. For our ability score increases, we want to increase our Constitution, Intelligence, Wisdom, and Charisma. And our general feat for this level is going to be Die Hard for more survivability. At 16th, we want to pick up Diverse Mystery. And we want to pick up the Lifelink spell from the Life Mystery. This will allow us to heal one ally a little bit in between our turns. We do gain the Minor Curse from the Life Mystery when we use this spell. However, that shouldn't matter too much as long as we're in the air. However, if we're in the air, we're not going to get hit as much as other spellcasters. Which means half healing for ourselves doesn't matter as much. And then on the free archetype side, we'll take Space-Time Shift. For a free action at the start of our turn, we can augment our strides. Doing so allows us to immediately teleport to any space that we could reach with our speed, instead of normally traversing to the location. This does not trigger reactions triggered by movement or by leaving a square. We can use this ability once every 10 minutes. For our last Ancestry feat, at level 17, we'll pick up Eternal Wings. Now we can fly anytime we want instead of once per day for 10 minutes. At level 18, we've got Divine Effusion. Now, twice per day, we can cast a spell even if we've run out of spell slots of the appropriate level. However, the two spells we cast with this feat must be different levels. Keep in mind, this feat does not say they have to be Oracle spells. Meaning we can use this feat with our Sorcerer spells as well. And then we can finally take Master Sorcerer spellcasting. This is just more arcane spells. At 19th level, we get a general feat, and you can pretty much take any general feat you want here. I went with Untrained Improvisation to help us with our skills. However, you could also go with Fleet for even more speed than we've already got. There's a lot of options here, and we've taken the general feats that we need for this build already. And finally, at 20th level, we get our ability score increases as well as 2 class feats. For our ability score increases, we want to increase our strength, constitution, intelligence, and charisma. There really isn't any other ability score increases that are going to help this build at this level, so these are the ones we're taking. For our first feat at this level, we're going to go with Mystery Conduit. This will allow us to cast any 5th level or lower spell without expending a spell slot as long as we're willing to advance the severity of our curse. And the last feat for this build is going to be Greater Bloodline. This will give us the Wish Twisted Form focus spell. We can target one creature within 60 feet. They must make a will save for each of the following effects. The target gains weakness 5 to an energy type of your choice. The target's resistances are all reduced by 5. The target takes a minus 10 foot status penalty to its speed. And the target takes a minus 1 penalty to all its saving throws. On a success, the target takes the penalties for 1 round. On a failure, the target takes the penalties for 1 minute. On a critical failure, the target takes the penalties for 1 minute and takes a minus 1 status penalty to AC for the duration. Very good debuff spell, it's just a shame that we can't take it until this level. Okay, time for Teamwork Report number 2. Now that we're higher level, our major curse shouldn't matter near as much. In fact, it'll probably help us more than hinder us now. Now that we can fly, slowed 1 shouldn't matter as much. Now if we're in the air, we don't have to worry about melee enemies on the ground. So as long as there aren't any flying enemies around, we can cast spells all day long and don't have to move. We're not avoiding the curse, it just doesn't matter as much. But we still want to refocus immediately after combat if we go into our major curse. Because you never know when flying enemies are going to show up. Or enemies that happen to be really good at sniping us out of the air. We can now also use our Chrono skimmer abilities even more than we could before. As well as our arcane spells, including the slow spell. We also now have multiple ways of avoiding that attack of opportunity against monsters that have it. Other than that, it's pretty much the same as at 10th level. Use your divine spells to buff allies or debuff enemies, and use your arcane list to attack when you need to. Pretty basic. And that's going to do it for this video. So until next time, teamwork is vital.